Good evening, everyone. uh, Welcome to the 2021 UCLA Neurology Open House. We are so excited to have you join us this evening. We actually had a countdown clock within the department to this day, to this very hour. What we hope that you will get out of this evening is an understanding of all of the opportunities available if you train in neurology at UCLA, a window into who we are as people and as a culture, and maybe a little view into the sunny life of Southern California. At this time, I would like to turn over the screen to my favorite boss, Dr. Thomas Carmichael, who is the chair of our department, and have him extend his welcome.
Great, thank you, Dr. Flippin. This is just a brief overview. Welcome everyone to this virtual open house. It's fun to share in this way, take advantage of kind of at least one positive aspect of the pandemic. This will just be a brief kind of 30,000 foot kind of view of the department. UCLA Neurology is a large department with 130 faculty and over 500 staff. And it sort of bins out into that famous third, a third, a third. So about a third of us are physician scientists or scientists. About a third are clinician scientists, and about a third are clinicians or clinician educators. The department has divisions in it so that we have kind of affinity groups or affinity areas. There are 13 programs. And these are what you might expect: epilepsy, stroke, migraine, neuro rehab, neuro-oncology. And then there are 5 services. So our programs have a strong footprint across all 3 mission areas of the department. They'll have a training program, like a fellowship, a research component, and clinical care. A service is an area where we clearly have expertise, but it just doesn't have a footprint across all 3. So this is like neuro-ortology, where we clearly have expertise and good clinical care, or neuro-ID. So 13 programs, 5 services. And we have strength in all 3 of the traditional mission areas of the department. So in research, we've been one of the top NIH-funded research departments since the mid-90s. And so this amount of activity and funding gives it a lot of depth. This leads to a lot of grant activity. In fact, it leads to not just the kind of traditional NIH grants, but it parlays into clinical trials. Our clinical trial structure now is as large as an NIH grant portfolio, and we've created an entire management group of administrators and trialists and negotiators with industry to grow that. And Dr. Jeff Saver runs that as an associate vice chair for clinical trial activity. We have the top citation index or impact factor of any neurology department. And when you look at some of our faculty, you'll see that with faculty like Jeff Saver, Dan Geschwin, John Mazziata, Tim Clausey, Tom Rando, who we just recruited from Stanford, Pete Engel, and even if I might say yours truly, doing a lot of work that leads their perspective fields. So outside of the research mission, clinically, we have many clinical environments. You'll hear more about this. And I think that's a rich part of UCLA. So we have the traditional TQ, tertiary quaternary care in Westwood. We have very strong neurology at Safety Net Hospital for the county, all of you. We are neurology at one of the largest VA systems, the West Los Angeles VA. We're the neurology at California Rehab Institute, which is the largest neuro rehab hospital in the state. And we have a substantial outpatient footprint, both academically, where the residents have a lot of activity. And then we have a large ambulatory care network in which we have community neurologists in our ambulatory care footprint. And it's unusual for an academic, but they actually report to me as chair. And so this provides another layer of pure community care experience into the department. You'll hear a lot about our education mission, so I won't go into that too much, other than to note it's really bottom up. I think that's how we all see it, in that the greatest ideas, the greatest impetus for change comes from the residents themselves. And so we're keenly participatory with the residents in regular intervals to understand how to continue to grow and develop the program. And then an important 4th mission area is really community outreach. particularly to underserved communities. And so we have a growing emphasis in that through some of our work at all of you, through new programs that we're about to launch in South and South Central Los Angeles, and through some community outreach that we have at the VA. So that's a key component. A final element outside of our mission is that it's a really integrative and collaborative place. So UCLA is the largest UC by people on the smallest landmass. And that really extends to the biomedical and clinical areas. We're really all over each other. And in the soon-to-be post-pandemic world, you really see that, where there are basic science lectures and clinical symposia, and they're all interspersed geographically in a tight department. We're growing. We had 11 new faculty in 2020, 8 this past year. We have a new program director in Keith Vossel for our Alzheimer's program. We have the expansion of a clinic structure through a large donor gift that we'll do at all of you. And we're growing importantly in junior faculty. So we had 7 K08 or K23 awards in the last 3 years. And this is 7 for 7. So our denominator wasn't huge. So we've been very successful there. We have new areas of emphasis like neuropalliative care that we kicked off this year, and a lot in global health research and education. So that's the whirlwind tour. It's a vibrant, dynamic, and deep neurology department, and it's very welcoming of trainees. We look forward to extending a bit of that welcome in the virtual open house. So thank you, and I turn it back over to our education team.
Thank you, Tom. I'm Dr. Charles Flippin. I'm the program director for the Neurology Residency program, and now I'm going to give you a brief overview of all that we have to offer for neurology training. Let's go. So again, welcome. And this is not a stock photo. These are actual former neurology residents here at UCLA. And I think this picture exemplifies what we're about. We enjoy working with each other and the work that we do. And also, we're always looking forward to the next challenge, whether that is a complex patient, clinical, or research question. So again, a few highlights about the department in general. We are number 3 in hospital care, according to the latest US News and World Report rankings. Again, outstanding clinical training by virtue of the diversity of the sites that we rotate through and provide care through. We have a large faculty, as Dr. Carmichael indicated, which makes for a very rich learning environment. Pretty much any question that you have, there's somebody in our department, or they definitely know someone who has the answer that you're seeking. Again, we are a very prolific research department paired with our outstanding clinical training. And because of that, we have opportunities for residents in research along with other special interest tracks that you'll hear about in a few minutes. So again, really what makes UCLA special are the people, the trainees, and also the faculty. So again, we're one of the larger departments of neurology in the world. We have an all-star list, and another person I will mention because he's in my subspecialty, Dr. Peter Goadsby, who is probably the most preeminent headache medicine researcher, joined our department also within the last year. We have over 130 full-time faculty and a cohort of voluntary faculty that also help in teaching our residents, but also giving a window to what life is like in practice and in the various other areas in which they are involved. So the education leadership, you've heard from Dr. Carmichael, who leads all of us. In addition to serving as residency program director and vice chair for education, We have two associate program directors who you'll hear from shortly. Dr. Adrian Keener, who is also a movement disorders subspecialist, and Dr. Yvette Bordelon, who in addition to being an associate program director is the neurology clerkship director for the medical school. And is also a movement disorders subspecialist. I don't know that, I guess that says something about movement disorders that they love to teach. And of course, we have the leadership of the education program extends to the residents also. And these are our current chief residents, who you will hear from a little later on this evening. Dr. John Lee, Dr. Fatima Traore, and Dr. Brittany Young. And so this terrific trio is leading us this year, and really they serve dual purpose. They are the advocates for their colleagues in residency, but they're also an integral part of the leadership of the program and of the department in everything that we do. So as Dr. Carmichael mentioned, really it is bottom up. We look to our trainees to inform us, to push us at times, but also as valued voices in pretty much everything that we do. And of course, none of this would work if we did not have our outstanding education staff, led by Rebecca Bernstein, now Reyes, as she was recently married. She is the residency program coordinator and also manager of the neurology education office. Jennifer Martinez is the fellowship coordinator for our ICGME fellowships. And then Oscar Ariana is the clerkship coordinator. They're all here because everyone helps in everything. We see education as a continuum and not pillars that are disconnected from each other. So as a neurology resident, you rotate through several different systems, three systems really. The university hospital and system, which is the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center here in Westwood. The Veterans Administration System, the West Los Angeles VA Medical Center, where we have an inpatient service and outpatient clinics, and the Sepulveda VA Medical Center, which is a multi-specialty outpatient center. And then the County of Los Angeles Safety Net Hospital System, and our part in that is Olive View UCLA Medical Center, which is up in Sylmar. So as you can see, we will provide you with an opportunity to treat patients across the socioeconomic, ethnic, and geographic spectrum of Los Angeles. Now you look at that map, and you may think, well, it looks like Olive View is way out there. Actually, I attended Olive View, and it is a short 20-minute drive up the 405 from Westwood to get to Olive View. You're against traffic in the morning and you're against traffic in the evening. So you see Los Angeles traffic, but you don't have to necessarily experience it. As Dr. Carmichael mentioned, we are on the main UCLA campus. And I think that this is an advantage that our program has over medical centers that are physically disconnected from their affiliated university. So the medical enterprise of UCLA sits at the southern tip of the UCLA campus. As you can see, the star there in the middle is the Reed Neurological Research Building, which is where the department is housed. But many of the other buildings around are where our faculty members have laboratories. There's a neuroscience research building that is about a block to the north. Across the street from the Reed is the Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. And just south of that, you see the 100 UCLA Medical Plaza and 300 UCLA Medical Plaza, where our outpatient clinics are held. So you have a very vibrant medical enterprise that sits right next to the schools of engineering, the life sciences on the undergraduate campus. And so that enhances our possibilities and opportunities for collaboration with the rest of the scientific community of UCLA. Across the bottom, you see snapshots of different buildings. The Reed building is the second from the right at the bottom. The entrance to our clinics right next to that. The clock tower is on the 300 UCLA Med Plaza building, where the resident outpatient clinics in Westwood are held. So this is a schematic of an average week at UCLA Neurology. As you can see, there are conferences every day. The main academic didactic session for the residents is on Wednesday morning, starting with a stroke conference, neurology grand rounds at 9 a.m., where we get speakers from all over the world. And even before Zoom, we had an international cohort of presenters at our grand rounds, followed by the resident core curriculum for the remainder of the morning, and then a noon outpatient conference at UCLA. So that's the meat of the didactics of the residency program. But as you can see, again, anything that you have an interest in, there's usually some opportunity to learn in a very formal fashion sometime during the week. We are an advanced program in that we're listed in the NRMP as starting with the PGY 2-year, though we have now 9 PGY1 positions that are linked to our program, 6 at the West Los Angeles VA Medical Center, and 3 positions at Olive View UCLA Medical Center. And here you see the composition of those intern years at the respective institutions. And we actually have a PGY1 who you can ask questions of regarding the Olive View experience when we get to the resident panel portion of the presentation this evening. It's a front-loaded schedule once you start neurology. So the PGY 2-year is a bit inpatient heavy. What we did as an innovation was put it on a 4+2 grid. So 4 weeks of inpatient work are followed by 2 weeks of only outpatient clinic work. That gives an opportunity for residents to develop their outpatient management skills and also to explore the numerous subspecialties in neurology that we have here at UCLA. I can tell you that since we've made that change, PGY2 residents smile deeper into the year. Everyone talks about how great those outpatient clinics are. And I can see that it has really informed people's ability to make a decision with regard to whether or not they want to subspecialize and what they would like to subspecialize in. In the subsequent years, PGY3 and PGY4, you see you have an increase in the number of elective months. So again, there's ample opportunity for you to explore your interest. You start supervision in your PGY3 year on the stroke and at West LA VA. So we cannot sugarcoat the fact that Los Angeles is the second largest city in the United States. It's also comes with a significant price tag. That being stated, we have a rather generous benefits package for house staff. The house staff are represented by a union. And as a result, we have a housing stipend of $12,000 a year, meals, $3,000 a year for use, license reimbursement, various forms of leave, behavioral wellness center resources, and every resident has an education fund, $1,000 per year for PGY2 and above. And also uniforms and a UCLA jacket are provided to house staff. So a lot of benefits here to help defray the cost of living here in Los Angeles. Now a word about diversity, equity, inclusion, which is highly valued within our department. And I can say that predates the events of the past 2 years that have really focused the nation's attention on areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. With regard to our residency program, we have a holistic selection process. There are no exam score cutoffs. Every application that's submitted is reviewed by the selection committee. So everyone, we look at people in total. No one is defined by a single number or one metric, and everyone has a different, unique path to this point. And we want to pay honor to that and give due consideration to everyone who considers us for training. We've installed a health equity and disparities curriculum. Yesterday, I gave a presentation on the Mexican-American experience in California and Los Angeles. We are going through and looking at the experience of all the various communities that make up the mosaic of Los Angeles. We feel that understanding people's path is important in being able to understand and give empathy and care to people when and where they need it. We have a sponsored clerkship to promote diversity. It's called Diversity in Training, where underrepresented students who come from underrepresented groups in medicine have a sponsored experience with us as typically fourth-year medical students. We have a Department Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, and residents have been and will be involved in the various activities involved with that community. And we have strategic relationships with organizations such as Young Black Scholars, which is a high school academic enrichment program. We are starting a relationship with something called Science Saturdays through the King Drew Medical Center. And these are just a couple of the opportunities that we're leveraging in order to increase our engagement with the community, and also give opportunities to our trainees to give back to the community. Mentorship is vital to anyone's career, anyone's well-being, and we recognize that. And Dr. Keener will speak to this in a few moments, but we have a tiered system. Everyone is assigned a faculty mentor when they start our program, along with big siblings from the preceding residency class. The chief residents are always a source of support for residents, as am I and the associate program directors and Dr. Carmichael. And I think that if you ask any of our residents, you can reach out at any time and you will not only get a response, but you'll be engaged. So I will quickly mention the various residency tracks, and you will hear more detail about each of them during the resident portion of the presentation. So we do have a research track that is the foundation of which is the R25 NIH grant, Translational Neuroscience Training Grant. We are fortunate in that we've averaged about 2 residents per class who receive this award on an annual basis. We have a clinician educator track, typically entered into in either the PGY3 or PGY4 year. It is connected to the medical education fellowship program that is run through the School of Medicine. We have an advocacy track to build skills on understanding policy and community partnerships, along with how to engage and develop a program in which you are going to impact patient lives beyond the technical aspects of medicine. And we also have a global neurology track, and this world map cartoon gives you an idea of the places that our residents have rotated over the years as part of this program. Oops. So resident life, it would be a shame to train in Los Angeles and not get out and enjoy it sometimes. And so our residents do take advantage of that. Some of the photos you see here are at the annual meeting of the American Academy of Neurology. Every PGY4 class is sponsored to attend the annual meeting. That has been a little bit of a downer the past year, but we're hoping that if things go right, we can resume attendance at the Academy meeting in the spring of 2022 in Seattle. And yes, you're here for your residency training, but we also feel we have a responsibility to help you with the next steps in your career. And so most of our residents will take a fellowship at the conclusion of the residency training. These are just a few of the areas that are offered here at UCLA, but also areas that residents have gone and pursued at other institutions. And when you graduate from our residency program, you're typically highly sought. And so our residents do fellowships at peer institutions like up the coast, UCSF, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, NIH. So coming to our program and graduating from our program does not come with any geographic restrictions. Basically, the world is your oyster. You can go anywhere you want to go leaving our program. Fortunately, many of our residents like to stick around. So, and then ultimately you become alumni. And I think that when you look at the alumni of our program, they represent our values. We value people who are leaders and are going to go out into the world and make an impact. And that can be Tulsa, Oklahoma, New York, Jamaica, just up the coast in Berkeley or Walnut Creek, academics, Columbia, private practice in Phoenix, leading the educational program in the neuroscience service line at a major medical center, University of Virginia, run a basic laboratory at Johns Hopkins, go into private industry and a biotech company in San Diego. Boston, Denver, or just stick around here, just go around the corner and practice in Santa Monica. But really, you can go wherever you want graduating from UCLA. And as you can see, there's a place for everyone in our program. And once you're part of our family, you remain a part of our family. And last but not least, of course, we're in Southern California. As I've mentioned before, the second largest city in the United States, and that comes with every possible cultural outlet that you could imagine. We have a climate that is enviable, particularly in December, January, and February. Sorry for the people who are in the Midwest and East Coast. But it is usually about 72 degrees and sunny. And you are only about 20 minutes away from being in the middle of the city and all that hustle and bustle to being someplace that is quiet and serene, such as the various hiking trails in the Santa Monica Mountain or surrounding areas. Dr. Carmichael is an avid hiker and mountain biker, so he can give you clues as to places that probably a little off the beaten track, but really it's really a great place to be because you work, and we all work hard, but it's very easy to find a way to find your calm center and enjoy Southern California. So with that, I have finished my overview of the program. I would encourage you to look at our website. There are a lot of resources there that will go more in depth about the things that I've touched on. And right now, I'd like to turn the screen over to Dr. Adrienne Keener, one of our associate program directors, and she will talk about our mentorship initiatives and share her perspective on being an alum of the department and now having been on faculty for several years.
Thanks, Dr. Flippin, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're excited to have you here and tell you all about why we love UCLA Neurology. So as Dr. Flippin said, I am an alumna of the program. And the reason that I chose UCLA for my residency training is the same reason that I've stayed here ever since. And that's really the people that make up our department and our residency program. The mentorship and sponsorship from the faculty, especially Dr. Flippin, who became program director when I was in my chief resident year. He really helped give me opportunities that led me to being here today, talking to you all as associate program director. I am a California native, born in the Bay Area, went to college at UC San Diego, where I studied literature and cognitive science. I went to medical school across town here in LA at a place that shan't be named, and then came here to UCLA for my residency training, stayed on for my movement disorders fellowship before joining the faculty. So I work with our residents clinically, both here in Westwood and at the West Los Angeles VA, where we have a Parkinson's Center of Excellence, and attend on the inpatient service there as well. And in my role as associate program director, I really became interested in medical education, sort of from my background in the humanities and literature, and wanting to bring humanities education to our neurology training program. I also completed the medical education fellowship, which you'll hear a bit more about as part of the education track. And when it comes to our mentorship program, one of the things that we've done to improve that in recent years is to create this sort of resident families that Dr. Flippin alluded to. So we pair incoming PGY2 residents with PGY3s and 4s. And this year, being the first year that we have prelims all here in Los Angeles, we also included them in the families. But this really creates sort of a family across the years for peer mentorship and support. Because who better to turn to find out where to get scrubs than somebody who was just in your shoes the year before. In addition, we pair all of our incoming residents with a faculty mentor based on their areas of interest. As Dr. Flippin said, our program is designed to give even our PGY2s a lot of room to explore outpatient subspecialties. So we also recognize that your area of interest on interview day may not be the fellowship you end up choosing. And so many of our residents find other faculty mentors along the way during their training. But that initial faculty mentor, your touch point to make sure that they are facilitating these relationships, challenging you and giving you opportunities as you proceed to sort of find your interests and pursue those. When it comes to the wellness program here, part of my interest in the humanities came from my own experience as a resident, where I really found that turning to reflective writing and narrative medicine was a way to support my own well-being. And so that was part of what I wanted to do for our residents. But in addition to sort of developing skills to support one's own well-being, we also have engaged in sort of systemic changes and initiatives to improve the well-being for our residents. And that includes some of the sort of very practical stuff that Dr. Flippin mentioned about salary support, housing stipend, meals, rides when you're fatigued on call to get home safely, as well as shifting to a 4+2 block schedule to provide sort of that built-in downtime to recuperate from inpatient service, reflect on what you're learning, catch up on sleep, and have a weekend or two off. So everything from these systemic changes to resident potlucks and our recently revived happy hours since the pandemic has improved somewhat. All of these things are part of the well-being initiatives in our program. I look forward to answering more Q&A, so I'll get back to that. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Bordelon, our other Associate Program Director and Director of the Neurology Clerkship here.
Thank you, Dr. Keener, and thank you, Drs. Flippin and Carmichael as well, and welcome everyone. This is the beginning of your journey of an exciting time in medical school where you're looking to figure out where that next place is going to be. So thank you for joining us this evening for us to share a little bit about why UCLA Neurology is so special and what we enjoy about it. What I want to spend a minute talking about is what we're looking for in applicants, because this is a common question that's coming up and the questions that were submitted and that will probably be asked tonight as well. And we have 11 outstanding examples that you will meet in the next portion of this open house. And I can't really say it any better than this is what we're looking for in our applicants. And there's no one specific formula. Everyone has a different story, different interests, different accomplishments. But when we're reviewing these applications and meeting you guys through Zoom, what we're looking for is that common thread of a passion for neurology and interest in neuroscience and what's driving you to come into a residency program. So it isn't, X number of research papers or X number of hours in community service. It could be either or both or a combination of these things. We're looking for your whole package and your whole story and what would make you an excellent neurologist and what drives you in this field. And this is how we find, I think, some of the best residents around, as you'll meet in a few minutes. There's some questions about subspecialty training. As Dr. Flippin mentioned too, both Dr. Keener and I are movement disorder neurologists, so we're quite biased in saying that that's the best subspecialty area of neurology, but recognizing that neurology is expanding in all directions. And so for those that are interested in critical care, there are many opportunities there and options in training here. And in fact, in addressing some of the questions that were proposed ahead of time, are there initiatives in our program for changing things? And this is one area where actually we are revamping some of the neurocritical care exposure during residency and training, opening this up to PGY2s, enhancing the PGY3 experience. And this is based on feedback from residents who have gone through this, right? So again, it's a group effort in fine tuning and making things better and making the experience better overall. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum and going to what my, again, field is in the outpatient practice and movement disorders and neurobehavior, et cetera, you do get exposure to that. And this is something that you'll hear in the next section too. The 4+2 curriculum for the PGY2 year has been a major enhancement that was initiated last year and has allowed residents early on in their training to have 2 weeks of outpatient clinics interspersed with a lot of their inpatient time. And that's when you get that exposure to subspecialty clinics as well as general neurology clinics, really getting the full spectrum of a neurology experience and neurology exposure. We'll spend just a few minutes to answer some questions, but before we do that, I want to introduce and get the backbone of this office and this program to say hello and how everything happens in this office at all. As with Rebecca Bernstein-Reyes, program director, and as well as Jennifer Martinez. Oscar can't be here tonight, but you'll be getting lots of information from them. So let me pass it over to those guys for a minute.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bordelon. I just wanted to welcome everyone. It's so exciting to have such a great turnout this evening. Jennifer and I are looking forward to being available to all of you throughout the season. If you have questions, to please feel free to reach out to us at any time. And hopefully we'll be able to meet you virtually at some point during the season. So enjoy this evening and best of luck to everybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer, the coordinator for the ACGME fellowships. And just to echo on what Rebecca said, it's great that everyone was able to join us today. And of course, just send us an email if you have any questions.
Thank you guys. And thank you guys for making this happen too. So I think we'll move on to the Q&A portion. And I know Dr. Keener was pulling up some questions to perhaps field.
Yes, thanks everyone. So we'll start with a couple of questions that came in ahead of time and that I think we've touched on briefly already, but I think is worth bringing up again. I think many people want to know what we're looking for in an applicant, how much weight we might place on being from California or being from the West Coast, how much weight we might place on having a strong research background. If you're a DO or an MD, does that matter? So I'll let Dr. Flippin maybe take it away and expand a little bit upon what we're looking for in an applicant and address some of those specific circumstances, if you could.
Yes, thanks, Adrian. So what are we looking for in an applicant? I think one word that Dr. Bordelon used is appropriate, and that's passion. Do you have passion for what you do? I think another very important word is leadership. We look for people who don't just exist in an environment, but they change it. And whether that does not have to be in a basic science laboratory. And, we are proud of, and we have been very successful in producing clinician scientists. We have a lot of opportunities, but that is not the totality of training at UCLA. The point of a residency training program is to be an excellent clinical neurologist where you can take care of patients, because at the end of the day, that's the home that we all share, caring for patients. And so that's what we work on really hard, to make certain that everyone, regardless of what their career path is going to be, that they meet that objective. And that is that you will be able to take care of any patient that you encounter after you graduate. We don't have a geographic fence around UCLA. I am not from California. And I think if you look at our residency classes, you'll find that probably at least a third, if not some years half of every class, people are not from California. That is not a way that we look at applicants. We look at the individual, and that individual is invited for an interview and is ranked based on their personal attributes, not their zip code, not a step score. Those things are not factored in. And the question about international medical graduates, we have had IMG residents in the past and will continue to have them. The issue of visa sponsorship, I saw in the chat it was answered. It is on a case-by-case basis because people's situations are different, but that has never been a barrier to anyone coming and training with us. And when you come here, everyone has an opportunity to lead. If you look at the chief residents of our department, some have been international medical graduates. I mean, everyone has opportunity here. So I don't want anyone to come away from this evening thinking that the door is closed. The door is wide open. You just have to walk through it.
Yeah, I'll just add, I mean, it's a very holistic process that we take in reviewing each and every application. So there isn't any, again, one formula. Someone asked something about letters of recommendation. Those are important because they give us another overview of what you've accomplished and what you've done. Your personal statement is important. Other activities that you've done. It's all reviewed and assessed by all members of the committee, and we take everything into account. So there isn't anything that that isn't considered in processing that application.
Great. Following up on that a little bit, Dr. Flippin, if you could speak to sort of recruiting, diverse applicants to our program, and what wellness resources might exist for URM residents.
So with regards to recruitment, I mentioned the diversity and training opportunity for medical students to have a sponsored experience with us. That's all expenses paid, so that economics are not a barrier. We have constant outreach to Student National Medical Association, the Latin Medical Student Association, Latino Medical Student Association, various affinity groups to make certain that everyone understands that the door is open to our residency program. With regards to psychological support services, we have an excellent behavioral wellness apparatus for all the physicians here at UCLA, because challenges don't end once you're out of training. And so everyone needs help at some time, and those services are freely available. But not only that, but we will allow time so that you can take advantage of those resources if they are needed. I think that, one thing that we have seen over the past year and a half, we need contact with each other. We need to engage with each other. And so coming out of the pandemic, as circumstances allow, we are continuing to create opportunities for community because that's where our strength and our wellness, that's one source of it.
Yeah, I'll just add, if I may, I think during the pandemic, as well as sort of the Black Lives Matter movement that really took hold last spring, I was really impressed by how our department, our residency program, our residents really all came together. We held several sessions by Zoom at the time for everyone's safety, just to commiserate and talk through what we were experiencing. Dr. Carmichael as the chair was very supportive, I think, also in bringing the department together and having everyone's voices be heard. So I think I just want to speak, even if you aren't a URM applicant, I think you will find this place to be a supportive and welcoming and open-minded environment where we're really here to support you. We know that there's life outside of medicine, and we want you to be part of our neurology family.
Okay, we'll, I think, continue to answer questions in the Q&A. So we'll keep working on that. But Dr. Flippin, maybe we'll wrap up and pass over to our residents.
Yeah, so now comes the part that I think most of you are waiting for, and that's to talk to the people who are actually in the midst of training here at UCLA and get their perspectives and experiences within the program. And with that, I will hand you off to the capable hands of Dr. John Lee, one of our chief residents. He is an international traveler, man of mystery. He will reveal some of his secrets, though, to you. And with that, take it away, John.
Thank you very much, Dr. Flippin, and thank you to everyone who is attending. We're really excited. I think I speak for the whole residency class, and I hope I speak for my fellow chiefs, Fatima and Brittany, when we say that we're just really excited to get to know and read all these applications and get to meet all of you guys, really, and to learn more about the enthusiasm for neurology that exists out there. In the interest of time, I think we'll just briefly introduce ourselves, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the various aspects of residency life and the different resident tracks. My name is John Lee. I grew up, as Dr. Flippin alluded to, overseas in Germany, Belgium, and in Egypt, and then I consider Philadelphia home. That's where I went to medical school at Drexel. And I think, the one thing that I really am looking forward to after residency here is fellowship, staying at UCLA to go into clinical neurophysiology and intraoperative monitoring. And with that, I'll let Fatima, Dr. Traore, introduce herself.
Thank you, John. My name is Fatima Traore. I am originally from the Ivory Coast, but I've been in the US for a long time. I went to college here in Southern California, and I also went to medical school in New York at New York Medical College, and then came back in California. I am also staying at UCLA for a fellowship. I'm going into headache, so I'll be training at the UCLA Goldberg Migraine Program. And it's been good, and I'm excited to meet you all. Nice to meet you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brittany. I am an LA native, but I spent 8 years in Wisconsin doing my medical school, graduate school, before coming back home. And for fellowship, I'm sort of staying. I'm going to be a couple miles down the road at the California Rehabilitation Institute, doing my fellowship next year in neurorehabilitation. So staying close and basically sort of seeing, but technically in a different building. So John, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Brittany. So the next thing at this point that we'd like to do is really give you a sense of what life is like for us residents here at UCLA. And with that, I will hand the podium, I guess, digital podium, over to our very well-rested PGY3s, Nan, Carla, and Molly, and they'll give you a brief presentation and hopefully what your appetite for Los Angeles.
All right, hello everyone, welcome. We're a few of the PGY3s. I'm Carla. I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia.
I'm Molly. I'm from California. I'm Nan. I'm from Maryland.
And well, we wanted to show you all a little bit of our community, a little bit of what life looks like as a, you know, PGY2, PGY3, and PGY4 here at UCLA. So we've put a slideshow together, and we're just going to kind of run through some pictures of our class and some of the things we do and our the different sites we rotate at. So cool. Yeah.
So we'll start with Reagan.
So this is our main hospital, so Ronald Reagan Hospital. And here you see a couple of pictures of us just sharing, bonding over some boba. We'll talk about a little bit of the didactics we do, and that's actually a picture of me drawing some neurons. And you can go forward. And so this is just a little bit of what the daily kind of schedule is like here at Ronald Reagan. We all arrive by 7 a.m. At 7:45, we do anatomy of the day, and that is a junior, one of the juniors is assigned an anatomy question, and they just kind of go over anatomy pearls. At 8 a.m., there's a morning report. By 8:30, we all round. By noon, hopefully we're having lunch, and we usually try to do that together as teams. So we have the general team and we have the stroke team, and we try to have lunch together. So if you're ever on our Instagram, there are a lot of pictures of all of us just having lunch together. We sign out by 5 p.m. and then we have a long call resident that covers from 5 to 7 p.m. and then we have a night float system, which is really, really nice. And that person covers from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and then the day starts over again. That's just a brief run through of what we do on a daily basis here. It changes a little bit in the different sites, but a lot of it is, you know, similar in the sense that we want to have some education throughout the day. We have our rounds, which is of course everywhere, and that we want to kind of share you know, a space where we're all interacting, and that's usually lunch.
And I have to say, we always try to eat outside where it's sunny every day.
Yeah.
And you'll see that on our Instagram.
It's very beautiful.
So these are our rounding rooms. And to your left, you're going to see, this is the general team rounding room. And then to your right is the stroke team rounding room. The only notable thing about this is that our room, we have really beautiful art throughout the hospital. And so the one on the right is called the Bill Murray room, because we have this wonderful picture of Bill Murray singing. And so that's what we referred to it as. And so that's pretty much Ronald Reagan. And I'll pass it over to Molly to talk to you about all of you.
Yeah, so I'm Molly. I will just briefly mention all of you. As we've already mentioned, our program definitely embraces the diversity of people and the diversity of hospital systems that we rotate at. So all of you is our county hospital, and it's really a great opportunity to serve a more underserved population of people that don't have very easy access to healthcare. So you end up seeing a lot of different types of pathologies there. We do have a lot of Spanish-speaking patients that go there as well. People tend to present, you know, later in the course of their illness and disease, and so you get to see a really big variety of neurology and other diseases as well. Also of note, this is a prelim opportunity, so you can do your prelim there at all of you. I also did my prelim at all of you. I absolutely loved it. And later on, one of our current prelims, Rebecca, will be joining us. So if you have any questions for us about the prelim opportunity there, you can ask us.
And you don't have to speak Spanish to get all of you. That's just
correct.
Yeah.
I speak no Spanish and I survived.
And then just our third site is the VA. There's actually two VAs. The one on the left here is the main site, the West Los Angeles VA, where we have an inpatient service, and also we do consults. This is also where we do some home call. And then this middle picture may look a little familiar to you guys. This is Sepulveda VA, also where they film Grey's Anatomy. For those of you that watch, we do our continuity clinic mostly at this site as well as at Reagan. And then this is a picture of the workroom on the right. Also a prelim opportunity. Half of our prelims are here at the West LA VA during internal medicine. And the people in our year who did it, Bill and Colin, they absolutely loved it. They thought it was great. And it really helps you kind of get like a leg in and get to know the UCLA kind of system and faculty and residents. Moving on.
So this is just a little overview of the educational experience here. And so we've briefly talked about the anatomy of the day question. That's always important to us. Morning report is usually led by one of the seniors, and it's very interactive. We encourage like everyone to participate, from the medical students to the different levels of training there. We usually have one of the attendings kind of be present, so the attending serving on the general service be present, so that they can contribute in this experience and kind of give us pearls, you know, similarly with respect to whatever they do or just general neurology. We have ground rounds, and this is every Wednesday, and I think Dr. Flippin mentioned this. And then didactics, and that's kind of a heavy didactics day in the middle of the week, which is really, really nice because it's protected time. So we're able to kind of, you know, leave the service for a bit, leave it to our seniors, and then all of the juniors are protected and are able to just sit down, relax, watch didactics, ask questions. It's really nice. I underestimated how nice it is to have that in the middle of the week when you're busy, and then you have like this breather. And then one thing that I've loved is brain cutting. We work closely with our neuropathologist, and so we go to brain cutting sessions, and here we interact with them. It's also very you know, they also encourage participation, so we answer questions and kind of look at slides with them and actual specimens. So it's very, very educational. And then lastly, we do procedures. We have an LP clinic that's available as an elective rotation, and we, you know, here you see Dr. Restrepo like teaching some of the procedures as well. So yeah, I think I've really enjoyed all of those.
And then this is one of the highlights, I think, of our program. We were the first year that got to experience the 4+2 schedule. So like Dr. Flippin said, basically for every 4 weeks of inpatient you're doing, you get 2 weeks of dedicated outpatient time where you're just going through the different clinics, MS, movement, neurobehavioral, genetics. And this year there will be also neuro ICU rotation that will be not like the intense kind of ICU that you're probably thinking, just kind of when you get to experience the ICU and kind of see how things go without having too much responsibility. And I have to say, as the inaugural class of this, we loved it. I thought that it was actually in some ways more wellness than my intern year. If you really calculate it over a 6-week period of the 4+2, you have 4 golden weekends off. You're only working 2 weekends. So it really, I think, goes a long way to promoting wellness for us.
I'll just mention as well that it's a great way to get exposure to all the subspecialty clinics, because I know that's often a question and something I myself was concerned about going in. I wanted to make sure I'd get a lot of different experiences, especially that first year, trying to get exposure to things. And so you rotate through so many different clinics and you get a great exposure to subspecialties that way.
And the other good, really great thing about it is that you're never going to be pulled away from your inpatient rotation to go to your resident continuity clinic. You're never going to be on the stroke rotation and going to clinic, because all of that clinic time goes in that 2-week block. So you're never like pulled in different directions at the same time.
So I will briefly mention the geography of Los Angeles. I don't know that you can actually see the pointer, but I'll go through it anyways. But just to orient you to this map, LA is a big place and we recognize that, but I think looking at the different neighborhoods is a great way to kind of break it down and make it look a little bit smaller, because it definitely feels smaller when you look at the map this way and you get to know Los Angeles. So the Westwood, where the mothership, Ronald Reagan is here in Westwood. And hopefully you all are able to see my mouse or have oriented yourself to Westwood. So that's where Ronald Reagan is. The map shows different neighborhoods that people tend to live in. So the blue circles are popular neighborhoods. So we have West LA kind of going towards the ocean. Some people go more east towards West Hollywood, go north towards the Valley, Sherman Oaks and Studio City, and then even go south towards Culver City. Other people live even more, further distances as well. And living in LA does require a car. Unless you live in the Westwood area, which some people do, and they ride their bike and walk to the hospital. So that's really nice too. The stars are the different hospital systems that we rotate at. So we have Ronald Reagan. We have the VA, which is, you can kind of see it next to Westwood. It says VA, that's one of our VAs. And then the Sepulveda VA that Nan mentioned is up north near North Hills. And then all of you is further north in the Valley in Silmar. So you can see it's all right off of one of the main freeways, the 405 highway right there. And then as someone who loves to hike, I also wanted to highlight how much outdoor activity and hiking there is all around us in every direction. So the smiley faces, the green smiley faces show all the places you can hike. So I won't go into it too much, but I just wanted to emphasize that it's surrounding us and there's lots of outdoor activities, even being in a very large city like LA.
So these are some pictures of us hanging out in the various outings. On this bottom left is when we did a taco tour last year. We also do what we will call the annual pumpkin carving. This beautiful brain was carved by Molly's boyfriend. And then one of our favorite things is the helipad sunsets. These are photographed by Molly.
With no filters.
No filters, correct. And then just some more pictures of us. These photos you will see featured on our Instagram as well. And then one last thing. So usually at the end of the year, the PGY2s will roast this outgoing seniors. And we were very proud of our video this year. And we wanted to just share a little clip of the intro.
And we'll give a shout out to our Peds Neuro co-resident who actually helped with the editing, and we were lucky, and we love our Peds Neurology residents when they're in their adult year. It's amazing, and we had a great time with them. They're now our fellows, but he's very talented. So
forever a part of our class. So all right, here we go. Yay! All right, and with that, we'll pass it on to the next slide deck, where we'll talk about the residency tracks, the various tracks that we have in our program.
Thank you, guys. So I'm going to pull this up. And we'll have presenters for the different specialty interest tracks for the program. We'll cycle through this with the research track going first. Brittany Young will be the person presenting about the research track. And I know there were some questions in the Q&A about this, so she'll address some of these pertinent issues and items. Molly will be back on screen and talking about the education track. We have Addis Mendizabal, one of the leaders of the EDI advocacy track, who will present about that track, as well as Jessica Pasquale, one of our other PGY4 residents, presenting on the global health track. So I'll turn it over to Brittany now.
Hello again. So our residency has numerous opportunities for research, both within this research track and also outside of this research track. So please don't think that this track in particular is your only opportunity for research. If that's something that interests you while you're a resident, there are a million opportunities, both in this track and outside of it. But the track in particular is for people who want a little bit more dedicated time and consolidated time, protected time in particular, to do more research as a resident. The goal is really to promote an understanding of postgraduate neuroscience research, encourage you to have that involvement, that level of involvement, and to really put the building blocks into place so that residents have kind of contiguous amounts of time, and also mentorship support, funding support, and logistical support in order to pursue research projects or participate in research projects that can be benchwork based, clinical based, or some combination of the two, depending on your interests and your needs while they are residents. Can we go to the next slide, please? I think this was one of the questions that came up in the Q&A, was kind of what does the timeline look like for the research track. So this is here approximately the timeline of when you would work on different phases of applying to the track, and also basically applying to the R25, which is one of the funding mechanisms that people who participate in the research track secure their funding through. So during your PGY1 and PGY2 year, you're basically identifying your mentor and identifying the project that you're planning to work on. Around the end of PGY2 year, going into the beginning of PGY3, you draft your grant or your project proposal and submit it. It's usually around the end of August that all of your materials are due, and you work very closely with your mentor or mentors on that document. And there's also a lot of great advice, either from prior residents who have done it, who've gone through the process, and also from faculty who are in the program who have kind of shepherded people through the process, who are available as well to kind of help guide you in that way. For the rest of PGY3 and the first half of PGY4, typically, although it doesn't have to be the first half, but some half of PGY4, you are doing all your normal clinical neurology resident activities. So like right now, for example, I'm senioring on the VA service. And then for about a 6-month period of time during your PGY4 year, you have essentially research time. So you do continue to have didactics and like continuity clinics, but everything else is essentially time that is set aside for research, and that's kind of whatever that time will look like based on your project. And then that will transition into your fellowship in the PGY5 and 6 year. The structure of what allocates time between your clinical time and your research time, whether it's like all in discrete chunks or kind of spread out and intermixed, depends on the individual fellowship. But you essentially should have 80% protected time during that phase of your training as well. The idea is at the end you can write and submit your K grant, and that'll take you into the next phase of your career. Next slide. So there are numerous kind of highlights of our program, particularly the research track and the R25, which are very closely related, but the R25 is not the only way to participate in the research track. So if you put a project together, you apply for an R25, and for whatever reason, it's awarded to a different resident or awarded to other residents, it doesn't mean that you can't participate in the research track necessarily. And so we've had a number of people go through this track over the years. And I think if we go to the next slide, you'll see that we've been quite successful in having people go through. These recent alumni, they're listed as mentors, but these are also fellows and attendings who are here now, which I think is important to highlight, that these people didn't do the track and then just sort of disappear and become just mentors. Like they are our attendings who are working with us pretty regularly and teaching us both clinically and also, being available to teach and mentor us in like the research world as well, and showing us how to achieve that balance between the two. So those are our big highlights for our research track. It's perfect for those who want to be more involved in a dedicated and consolidated research project while they're residents. But again, if this is a little bit too much, or someone doesn't, they want to be involved and they don't want to go all in for this track, there are, again, many other opportunities for research as a resident here at UCLA as well. I think I hand it now to Molly, who will tell you about the Residency Clinician Educator track.
Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Molly. I'm one of the PGY3s. This year, I'm doing the education track, so I want to tell you about it. So basically, this program, it's geared for PGY3s and PGY4s in residency. It's also open to fellows and faculty, junior faculty as well. And it's something that you formally apply to through the School of Medicine. It's considered a little mini fellowship program. And it basically involves learning how to design curriculums and curriculum projects. And then it teaches you how to implement the project that you come up with and design. So it's great for people that are interested in medical education, if you're interested in pursuing academia long-term, if you're interested in being involved in medical education research, it's a great way to do that. And then it also offers opportunities to teach medical students, teach residents, and the like. So it's a 2-year program. The second year is essentially optional. You can decide after the first year whether you want to pursue the second year. And the first year involves bi-weekly seminars that teach you about curriculum design and learning theory, adult education, things like that, and gives you sort of the tools needed to create your own education project. And then the second year is when you can really use that to implement your project and do a research project as well involved with that. So here are just some examples of projects that have been done in the past. On the left, these were our recent graduates who are now all fellows, but Kat Fu, for example, did a project on Journal Club and doing a flipped format of it. Dr. Lev is one of the headache fellows currently, and he really championed the procedure elective or procedure clinics. And then we have Shubro, who is one of the fellows at Johns Hopkins now in neuroimmunology, and he also was a big proponent of the 4+2, helped get that implemented, which is why we were able to benefit from that. So my project this year is going to be based on neurology simulation sessions for different emergency neurology scenarios and incorporating that into our curriculum. And we also have some quarterly meetings through the track with Dr. Keener, Kat Fu, who I just mentioned, and we sort of discuss different curriculum projects and ideas and things like that, and check in to see how things are going. So let me know at the end if you have any further questions on that. So now I'll pass it on to Addis, and she'll be doing the equity, diversity, inclusion, and advocacy track.
Thanks, Molly. So hi, everyone. I'm Addis. I'm one of the Movement Disorders Fellows. This is a little bit unusual. As you can see, I'm not one of the current residents, but I wanted to, in addition to being one of the co-leads for the track, I also wanted to chat a little bit about a bit of my background and kind of what are some of the things that have motivated me to take on this responsibility with this track. I think that it's one of the newest, probably the newest track. It was formerly known as the advocacy track, and it was actually one of the previous chief residents, Shubro Roy, that started this track. As such, there's not that many residents that have gone through the track, and because it's a new track, I think one of the key things about not only UCLA, one of the key things of every neurology residency program, but in particular UCLA, is the ability to think of how to revamp curriculums and make changes to make sure that pretty much all of the tracks and all the experiences provided to the residents are going to be aligning with their career goals. Next slide. So this is the mission of the track. And I can tell you that throughout the years, throughout my training, I did not do residency or medical school at UCLA, but in every place that I've trained, I've been able to learn something in terms of equity, diversity, inclusion, and advocacy that I've been able to kind of take on. And now this track is a little bit of a culmination of all the experiences that I've had and also a lot of the opportunities that UCLA has to offer. So I think ultimately the goal of this track and the mission is to provide residents with the language and skills necessary to become leaders in patient advocacy in all healthcare settings. Make sure that residents are able to ensure improved access, outcomes, and representation of all patients with neurological disease, independent of their race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, religious background, or physical intellectual abilities. In summary, the goal of the track is to create a set of leaders in neurology that are going to be ensuring that we're able to achieve health equity. Next slide. So as I mentioned, I have a little bit of a different, again, background, and it's a new track. So I think more than spending time and chatting about what people have been able to do in the track, I kind of want to, sorry, give me 1 second. It seems like I'm having issues with the mic. Let's see, hopefully that's better. So as I said, as it pertains to the track, I want to focus a little bit on how a career in advocacy, equity, diversity, and inclusion can look like. And there's a lot of different ways in which you can pretty much follow a career in this. Personally, I'm interested in health disparities research, and I've been awarded a grant to do health disparities research in Huntington's disease. Not something that is through the NIH necessarily, but obviously the NIH does have a lot of different funding structures to help with this. But independent of that, it could be involvement with community outreach, something that we already do by having a service at all of you and at the VA, but also even in a volunteer level. One of the things that we're working on is trying to create different community clinic outreach programs so residents can participate if they want to continue to advocate and provide neurological care in underserved communities. I mentioned about a career in research, and the goal of the track is to be able to support those residents interested in a research career by plugging them in with all of the great resources that UCLA has. One of the main resources includes accesses to health services research. UCLA is a big center for this type of research, so that's an opportunity that's here at UCLA and that we would love to have our residents be able to participate on. And then also other topics, as it pertains to ensuring that there's greater diversity in clinical trial participation. Here at UCLA Neurology, the EDI committee is committed to ensuring that we can improve the access to clinical trials that we have running here at UCLA to all patients, regardless of their racial or ethnic background. As it pertains to medical education, just the implementation of the track as a way of pursuing a career in EDI and advocacy, but then also other ways in which providing students with, residents with other opportunities as it pertains to improving medical education on this topic and increasing diversity, both at a departmental level or a medical school level. And then also as it pertains to policy, for example. So one of the things that our previous chief resident, Chubaro, is currently doing, he has been accepted to be part of the Palatuche Advocacy Forum, which is a program through the AAN that pretty much teaches residents and fellows to be good advocates as it pertains to patient care at a legal level as well, advocating in terms of lobbying with Congress, policymaking, and things like that. Next slide. So here's an example of a proposed set of requirements. Like I said, it's a newer track, so we're going to be making changes as we go along based on resident participation and feedback. I do believe that one of the main goals should be, and one of the main requirements is making sure that residents are involved in some form of community outreach. Some examples is the Venice Family Clinic, which is a clinic serving underserved patients. There's an opportunity to be part of a homeless clinic through a Venice Family Clinic as well. Dr. Flippin mentioned earlier the Charles Drew Saturday Science Academy, so that would be a form is part of a K through 12 program to increase students with exposure to medicine, and in particular neurology exposure. And then also having some form of scholarly project. And this scholarly project, it would be something that would be aligning with the residents' career goals. So whether it is an interest, a career goal in research, whether it is more health policy, quality improvement, or education, pretty much whatever is a resident's career goal, we would like to be able to help them shape that into something that could be a scholarly project upon the graduation of the residency. Other ideas for the track, which hopefully, you know, as more people go through the track and throughout the years, we see how that looks like. I mentioned the AM Palatucci Advocacy Leadership Forum, which one of our former residents and pretty much the creator of the advocacy track will be partaking on the fall. But there's other opportunities through UCLA. One of them is the National Clinician Scholar Program, which is a program that focuses on health services research in particular, and has the opportunity for a master's in health policy and management. And then there's also the health program, the START program, that has the opportunity to pursue a PhD on health policy and management. These are some of the things that are available at UCLA that we hope to be able to provide those opportunities and kind of help our residents be able to be part of them if that's something of interest to them. And I think that this is my last slide. I'm going to pass it over now to Jessica, who will be talking about the global health track.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm one of the PGY4s currently, and I'm also one of the track leaders for the global health track. I share this role with Dr. Raj Mazumdar, who's one of our wonderful attendings that works here. And if you have the opportunity to come and work with us, I'm sure you'll get to meet him. So I wanted to start out with talking a little bit about the missions of the global health track. And I think, well, first off, I want to say that I think global health is one of the topics and disciplines that's really on our minds, especially in the context of the COVID pandemic and how it's just highlighted, disparity that we know to exist in this world. So I think what we really want to do first off is to kind of create a community where we can create a set of resources and be a support system for trainees that's hopefully you guys that are interested in having a career in global health, or at least providing some service to in a global health context. So creating a community. We would also like to provide residents with the expertise in the global burden of neurological illness and disability. And I think for the most important one, though, what we really strive to do is improve neurological care for vulnerable populations, specifically in lower income countries. Next slide. So some of the expectations, you guys don't have to worry about all these specific expectations that I have listed, but what I do want to highlight is that we would like for there to be collaboration with our internal medicine department that also has an excellent global health track, and to attend their seminars and to share in an educational experience with them. And also there are grand rounds that we hold through the UCLA Global Health Center itself that occur on a once per 2 month basis. We would like for there to, again, like talking about creating this community of global health neurologists, that we would like to meet on a quarterly basis and to have a journal club to discuss readings, at least again, 4 times per year. Another expectation is that there to be some sort of scholarly projects. So again, there's a lot of flexibility here. You can pair it with one of the R25 if you wish to do the R25, there's no reason that you couldn't pair it with a project that was based in the global health realm. But also, if you're not the most researchy type, that's fine. We would just like you to submit perhaps a reflection on sort of your experience abroad, or to a QI project. Again, with this mission of sort of creating a community, we would like you guys to go to one of the global health section meetings in either the AAN or the ANA. Next slide. So these are some of our electives. So these are the electives that we have currently that are set up, ready to go. And we have 3 sites, Zambia, Uganda, and Mexico City. Now, with that said, there's a lot of flexibility here. So if you are able to find a faculty mentor and to have a new site in a different location, that is totally acceptable. And we encourage that because we would love to grow the program. And then on the horizon is a paired elective experience with the internal medicine global health department, especially pertaining to experiences in the realm of neuro ID. Next slide. And then just kind of going over the timeline, what does it look like if you were to engage in our program? So again, lots of flexibility. During your PGY2 year, you would select hopefully at least a faculty mentor and perhaps a site that you would be interested in. And then during your 3-year, you would attend the series of didactics and come to our quarterly journal clubs. And then either during, again, as Dr. Flippin had mentioned, in the 3 and 4 year, there's ample time for elective experiences. So during either one of those years, you should spend a 4 to 6 week period at your designated site as well. One thing I do want to mention, though, that if you want to pair it with the R25 program, that you might want to get started sooner rather than later, because, combining something as sort of, I guess, detailed and intricate as the R25 proposal, you really want to make sure that you're well set up for your field research that you'll be conducting abroad, but otherwise very flexible. And I think that's it for me. With that said, I guess I'll turn it back over to John, our chief resident.
Great, thank you guys. Thank you so much. So we're gonna go and try to answer some of the questions in the Q&A, but before we do, you might see some faces in the participants here that didn't get a chance to speak. So I wanted them to have a chance to introduce themselves to you so that you could target your questions potentially to focused individuals. Maybe Rebecca. Actually, Rebecca and I have only met once. She's one of our interns, and she will be joining us next year in the neurology side. But Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself to the group.
Hi, everyone. Like John said, I'm a PGY1. I am originally from Haiti, then moved to Florida, and now I'm in California. I am part of the Olive U internal medicine program as my prelim year.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Brian was here, and just to prove that we're not hired actors, he's actually answering a page right now dealing with really interesting neurology, I hope, at the VA. So once he's back on, we'll have him introduce himself. But maybe Fatima, if you have some questions lined up for us that we can answer, we can get started.
But Jenny is here. Jenny is here to represent the PGY2 class.
Yes.
Oh,
hi,
hello.
Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Oh, hi,
Are you in the parking lot?
Yeah, I'm in the parking lot. I just got out from the clinic, and I would also like to introduce myself. Sorry, it was a long day for me. I'm Jenny. I'm one of the PGY2s. I'm originally from South Korea. I did my medical school in Chicago, and I recently moved to, I guess not recently, like a year ago, I moved to here. I did my intern year here at West LA VA mostly. So if you guys have any specific questions to that, I'm happy to answer. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you for participating despite your busy day. That's commitment. All right, so there was a question about cost of living. I will have happily answered, but I also moved from New York, so for me, it wasn't that bad. So I figured I would pick somebody who actually came from lower to higher cost of living. So maybe Carla, you can speak on that. So she moved from Nashville, right?
Yes, that is correct. So I did my intern year at Vanderbilt in Nashville, and Nashville in general is, of course, it's a city that's where cost of living is much cheaper in general terms compared to Los Angeles. I will say though that with and I was quite nervous about moving out here. My partner and I were wondering how we were gonna, deal with finances and high cost of rent and things like that. But thankfully, that we have a union, and so that's been an incredible perk. We get a housing stipend, which is incredible. It's $1,000 a month. And so to be quite frank, we are paying pretty much the same for rent than compared to what we were paying in Nashville. So in Nashville, we had no additional stipend, just our residency salaries. And when we moved out here, it became more expensive, but with the stipend, it kind of leveled out. So while it is more expensive, I think the fact that we have a union and that we have these additional, financial support avenues, it has been incredible for us. Similarly for food, and we have additional things that we can talk about. I'm also one of the union reps, and so we, in addition to a housing stipend, we have food allowance, and we also have an Uber, which is like, of course, everyone knows what Uber is, but we have a transportation stipend as well for fatigue mitigation. So, but particularly about cost of living, I understand the concern, and I think we all had it, but we were very happy to know that we could make ends meet and also save some money as a result of that. Yeah.
I just want to add, oh, go ahead.
I was going to mention as well, there's a relocation reimbursement as well. And so we definitely, sent in our receipts and got a relocation reimbursement. And I think the maximum is
something like $2,500 to $3,000 for reimbursement, which is really nice. It covered all of my expenses. I moved from Maryland during the pandemic, and I didn't really have to pay anything actually. Fully covered our travel and like the U-Haul and everything.
And so we just got an update. The exact number is $2,750, which is, it's a lot, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, I'm also one of the union reps, and I have to say that having a union is so important. I highly recommend that you look into it for whatever program you're applying to. It's just nice to have a collective group that has large bargaining power to kind of advocate for our rights. For example, during COVID, the union was very involved with making sure we had enough masks, making sure we were getting tested every week, and really having that large voice for all the residents. And then in terms of the cost of living, I moved from Maryland, which is pretty cheap. And I feel like, honestly, I think with all the union benefits, the increase to our salary, the $12,000, I actually feel more wealthy now than more economically kind of free and comfortable than I did in my intern year, actually. And then I think there was a question in the chat about if there was adjustments in the income for, I think, inflation or something like that. With the union contract, there is a 4% increase in your salary that was built into our contract.
All right. Thank you so much for the thorough answer. That helps a lot. I should add also, I'm the resident foodie here, and we get $3,000 a year. And to give you context, the cafeteria at Regan is very good, and we get it's about $7 per meal, and we have $25 per day, and I definitely reached that, and I still ended up having $700 left at the end of the year. I don't even know how that's possible. So it's a lot of money. So that's for that question. We also had a question about transition from PGY 1 year to PGY 2 year. So I'll pass that down to Jenny.
Sure. I'm actually currently driving, but can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the transition from PGY 1 to 2 is, I think somewhat big because you are mostly focused on the IM program, and then you're coming into neurology, but everyone is very, very helpful. I think that's what I have noticed. There is always people that you can reach out to and ask for specific help if there is any concern. And we have written guides. That's placed here. So if you have any questions, there is a neuro box that you can refer to. There is already documents that we can go and ask questions that can answer our questions. So I am currently, I would say that the transition itself is big, but it definitely wasn't bad at all. I think it was pretty smooth.
Very good. Thank you so much. I think there was a question kind of that I kind of answered before, but kind of related to that. There was a question about PGY1 rotating, having a neurology elective. So I just want to address that. So the PGY1 schedule, just kind of universally, is very busy. You have a lot to do. So usually it's very rare that people are integrated. And then you clearly have the rest of your life to like learn neurology. So don't rush, you know, you have plenty of time. So, but for the purpose of our program, we do encourage the PGY1s to be as involved as they can be. So at the VA, on selected dates, they're able to rotate in our clinic. And then for didactics, our didactics unfortunately fall during the time where they will be rounding. So like Wednesdays from 9 to 12, but let's say that they're on elective and they wanted to join, they will be more than welcome to. But generally, people don't start to be involved in the neurology activities until the PGY2 year. So that's for that question. We had another question also in that vein about rotating at the VA. So I'm going to open the floor to kind of everybody because everybody had like various experience. I never had any VA experience before here, so it was a transition, but you adjust like everything else. Let's see, maybe Brian, now that you're done responding to pages, maybe you can tell us about your experience.
Absolutely happy to talk about the VA. So I'm Brian Hickman. I'm one of the PGY2s. I did my intern year elsewhere, so I'm new to UCLA and I'm loving the start of it. And originally from the Midwest, so not a native Californian, but also really enjoying it here. The VA rotation has been a great learning experience. We've had wonderful attendings to staff with, and being able to work with this patient population is really rewarding. We end up taking a home call system, which means that 1 weekend and then 2 weekdays, you end up being able to go home, but if you get pages, end up seeing patients. It's not too often, so it's not overwhelming. And there's a very good system in place for if things happen to be very busy, there's definitely a Jeopardy resident available to come in and help you out the next day if things are a little bit too much. It's been very positive, and have enjoyed working here. I'm glad that we get another site aside from all of you and Reagan to be able to work with patients.
And just kind of a comment, because our prelims are, half of them are at the VA now. For example, for Bill and Colin in our year, Colin often told us that the VA felt like his home because he spent all year there as an intern and he really knew the ins and outs of it. So it really made it really easy to rotate at the VA again as the neurology resident.
And I can actually second that too, because I have a lot of experience at the VA because we get to stay in the VA and then work with the system. I think I have a better understanding of how the VA system works and how we can like discharge people, which like doctors or which service to refer to. I think because we get the 1 year experience there, we have more exposure to the system itself, and I think that's really, really helpful.
It's such a strength to be able to rotate through so many different sites and see how different hospitals work. Just being able to see how different hospitals are able to set up coverage, set up different referrals for different problems, be able to set up clinic, I think is very good to see. You end up getting different amounts of resources, different places, and different specialists. So you end up having a broader amount of faculty that you get to work with. So it makes it a very positive experience.
Okay, so that is it for that question. And Dr. Flippin, are you on? We had a question for you.
Of course I'm on.
Yes. All right. We had a question about the Black Lives Matter movement and how UCLA has been involved in that. So maybe you can speak on that.
Okay, yes. So, it was a very challenging year with the pandemic, but then with the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and numerous other incidents that occurred leading up to George Floyd's death, we had to all take a pause, and our department, but also the medical center as a whole. Specifically in the department, we took a didactic session, had a listening session within the residency, but then also we had one department wide in June of that year, which was the first of 3 subsequent listening sessions to understand what people were feeling. And because I think that everyone experienced that period of time in a different way. We allowed space for people to participate in demonstrations. We had them here on campus. There were several in the community. I think that it was personally, because I do have a somewhat paternalistic sense for you guys. Several of you I called and checked in on, particularly on days where getting to and from the hospital, if you're on home call, could have been dicey based upon what was going on in the streets. But it was keeping communications open. As I had mentioned during my earlier presentation, we have added some things to the curriculum that don't necessarily fall within conventional neurology, and that's learning about the ethnic communities that exist here in Los Angeles. Another reason why I think Los Angeles and UCLA is a great place to come and train is that you have the world at your doorstep, and pretty much you will encounter patients who are gonna stretch your perspective on the world, will make you realize that not everyone has the same opportunities, and that we have to still figure out ways in which to give the best care to people. And part of that is understanding where they're coming from. And so that's why we started the series on looking at the major ethnic communities that make up Los Angeles. We couldn't talk about every community because there are 20 or 30 different ethnic groups that are in Los Angeles. And for many of them, Los Angeles is the largest community outside of that particular country that exists on the earth. But we've had a session on the Black American experience here in Los Angeles, looking at usually social determinants of health, education, housing, obviously healthcare, policing. We just had the Mexican American experience. Upcoming will be the Asian American experience, and most of that will principally, at least the early history, will deal with the Chinese community, who suffered mightily as California was formed. We touched a little bit on that yesterday, but also the indigenous community, because whether you realize it or not, Los Angeles has the largest indigenous population of any city in the United States. And that's those who are native to North American continent, to North America, but also indigenous populations that have come from, immigrated from Central America and Mexico and South America. So we need to understand and appreciate everyone's path in life. And so that's part of our education here. And I will demonstrate humility. I don't know, I'm not an expert in these things, but I found people that are great resources, and an expansion of this will be inviting people to come and speak to us from the School of Public Health, but also from North Campus, the humanities and the social sciences, so that we all can make this journey of learning together and improve us as doctors.
All right, thank you, Dr. Flippin, for chiming in. Okay, so I'm just trying to keep track of all of the questions. So I think we just
Fatima, I have one question to direct to you, if that's okay.
Sure.
There was a question that had come up about resident-driven initiatives and projects, and we mentioned a lot of them in the track leadership pathways, but there's one in particular that I think that you would want to speak about, which is the newly christened lumbar puncture clinic. Would you say a few words about that?
Yes. We have this new resident lumbar puncture clinic, which is an initiative that I led. So the idea came from the fact that as a PGY2, so you get exposure during your inpatient time to learn how to do lumbar puncture, but it's usually in the context of emergencies. So, you know, this person has encephalitis, maybe we need someone to do that. So it's not always as optimal of a learning environment. And so the idea was to have kind of like something more structured and also volume. So for me, I was always unlucky. I was always on call, or I had some other reason why I couldn't do my own lumbar punctures inpatient. So it wasn't until I was a PGY3 that I really got the volume to feel comfortable. So when the opportunity opened, I just kind of ran with it. So now we have this lumbar puncture that just started in July, where PG is integrated in the PGY2 schedule. Sorry, PGY3s and 4s, but you guys are already pros. Where one afternoon per block, they spend time with a seasoned proceduralist, and they learn how to do lumbar puncture with ultrasound guidance too, for more precision and also safety, and then just because it's fun. You don't need an ultrasound, it's just nice to have. And so it's just started to ramp up. So we had a few sessions now. The next session is next Monday, and we have the resident that is doing the session has 3 lumbar punctures scheduled. So it's back to back to back during one afternoon. And hopefully she gets a champagne tap. I don't know if you guys what that means, but that means when there's no red blood cells at all. And I'm supposed to pay for those champagne taps, but I don't have the money for that. So that's like one thing that I'm really excited about, and that's starting to pick up, and hopefully it builds on and grows such that we can incorporate PGY3s and 4s as volume increases. All right, that was my part.
I think there were a couple other questions
yes,
in the Q&A that we wanted to pose to the resident panel.
Yes, there's
Fatima,
a couple more questions. Yeah. So there was a question about, are there any certain aspect we should keep in mind when we are ranking preliminary medicine at West LA versus Olive? So I would like to open that question to 2 people. One of the associate program directors, so maybe Dr. Keener can speak a little bit on that, and then somebody who went through the process, so either Brian or Jenny.
And Rebecca. Yeah. Sure. So I actually did my prelim year at all of you before it was officially affiliated. And I think in Dr. Flippin's presentation, he covered sort of the differences between the 2 programs, and really the differences between the 2 hospital systems and the populations they serve. I will say, I think they're both excellent training programs in internal medicine. And so either one will provide you the skills and knowledge to build a really great foundation to begin your career in neurology. All of you is our county hospital, so a more underserved population, and the VA is a unique patient population as well. But let's ask Rebecca, who's our current prelim intern, what her experience has been like, and maybe why she chose all of you versus the VA.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca again. I think that, so at my old institution, I got an opportunity to kind of rotate in both the VA setting and the county setting. And I just always found myself drawn to the population of the county setting. And at Olive View especially, we have a lot of Spanish speaking patients. And I loved that. And I had some opportunity to take some Spanish in college. So I enjoyed that aspect of thing. And I think the faculty at Olive View also is very passionate about that community, and that kind of translates downward. So it's always very joyful working with them. And I think the patient population as well in Olive View, we have, kind of like Molly mentioned, we have patients who have not had the opportunity to have access to medicine earlier in their disease course. So it's always a pleasure to interact with such individual and kind of provide the care they couldn't have. So I think that's kind of what drew me towards possibly leaning more towards Olive View versus the VA.
Great. Jenny, are you still driving? Are you able to speak to your VA experience as an intern?
I'm definitely able to speak about my intern experience there. Like Rebecca said, VA also is a very specific population with many, with all of them being vets. So I think you learn a lot about bread and butter cases of medicine just by being there, and how that population face like a lot of like vulnerable issues regarding housing, regarding like substance use. So you'll see a lot of those kind of like vulnerability, and you are able to intervene on that. I thought that was a really, really great thing about working in the VA. And then the attending there in the IM service, and also our neurology attendings there too, are really, really great educators. Their lectures are really, really great. They're very passionate about taking care of the vets, which are also always really good. So I really enjoyed working in the VA, and like I said, like learning the system like ahead of time can definitely make you a better clinician like moving forward.
And I'm happy to talk about the experience of doing a junior elsewhere and then joining for UCLA residency. So one of the nicest things about our system is that we have these spots that are available for guaranteed for all of the residents who are coming. But then also we have the flexibility that you can train elsewhere if you'd like. So if you have a reason for wanting to stay by your home institution for intern year, if you'd like to be at a particular location for personal reasons or for family, and then come out here to train, we allow for that flexibility. So for me, I was a little bit further south at UC Irvine, where my wife is an OBGYN resident, so it gave me a year to be very close to her, and then be able to come up here for my residency training. And the experience of transitioning to UCLA has been wonderful. I've felt very supported as I've started here. Had a great time starting out on stroke with our wonderful PGY3 Nan. I'll never forget our first stroke code together that she helped guide me through. So the seniors are always extremely supportive for bringing new residents into UCLA. And of course, the relocation stipend always helps a lot too.
Thank you, Brian. Awesome. All right. So it's been a while. So I just kind of want to close out with the last question, which I thought was a great question. We'll try to go around. So the question is, if you could describe the personality of the residents in one word, what word would it be? So I'll start, and then I'll pass the microphone to, I'll just speak on people's names because I know that there's going to be like silence. All right, so if I had to use one word, I'll say quirky. I think we all have our personalities and little quirks, and we're into different things, and that's what makes this space interesting and fun. And for me, the best part of the residency is the people, for sure. You spend 10, 14, 15 hours, sometimes 2 hours with people, and you just really want to get along with everybody. So I think that we definitely have that here. All right, passing it down to Jessica.
You know, that's so unfair because I was going to say quirky too. And now I only had like 5 seconds to think of what my second place was. But well, I guess the only thing that comes to mind is just awesome. I mean, I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but I really love all my co-residents here. And really, yeah, that's all the words that I have is, or the one word is just awesome.
All right. It's okay to reuse quirky once, you know, if it's just like the best describer, it is what it is. All right.
Kids too.
John.
Well, I think one word that maybe it's because of the pandemic and everything we've gone through together, but I do feel like one word that really fits well is together. I think I never once felt like I was alone in a silo by myself. Even on night float, I remember PGY 3-year being, hey Brittany, what do you think this is? You know, or like the WhatsApp group for everyone in the class band, guys, I have no idea right now what I'm doing, but I think I have all my bases covered. Did I miss anything? And so I think it really feels kind of like we are all together in this place together, but also working, solving problems together, and sometimes, you know, really going through the hard parts of training together as well, whether it's through the experiences in the hospital or experiences because of COVID. I think it's really brought us together.
Nice. What you said about the WhatsApp group is so true. I feel like I have too many WhatsApp groups. It's like as each year people leave and come, there's just like a new WhatsApp group and I just can't keep track. Okay, Nan, Carla, and Molly. You don't get one word, you get each of you have to say a word.
Well, John kind of stole mine. I was going to say supportive, which is kind of in that same vein. I feel like people are like really supportive of each other. But I guess if I had to choose a new word, I'd say that we're really diverse. I think that people really surprise you in their backgrounds and the things that they've experienced. You think you know someone who's Irish and actually they grew up in Bolivia. True story in our class. So I really enjoy how everyone has like a unique perspective.
I think there's a lot of similar themes getting passed around. My first word was eclectic, which I feel like is just another way to say quirky and what Nan just said. So, you know, we have a lot of, you know, different interests, different personalities. And so I'm going to give one more word because my second word was cohesive, which is also on a similar theme that other people said. But because we're all, you know, so different, I feel like, you know, we just get along really well. And it just is a really great experience for everybody.
You know, it's hard to come up with one word. I think the things that you guys have said, I second absolutely. I think there's I will just repeat because I think there's a lot of support. I really feel like it's a very kind environment and it's a very supportive environment. I think you know, we feel like a family in some ways, and I don't think that I've never felt alone, but in particular, I feel like people are actively reaching out. So it's not when I've been, when I've asked for help, it's like the anticipation of, you know, I think we all look out for each other. And I think when I've been on long call by myself or been night float, there's always somebody who's hung out with me for a little bit longer. Like there's always somebody who said, can I take this one? You know, because you already have a lot going on. So I think there's a lot of like, just looking out for each other. And so I think that, yeah, I don't think that that's one word, but if somebody can summarize that.
A lot of words, you're allowed only one word.
Oh God.
Also, I would add the endless supply of cakes. We have two resident bakers. Brittany is one of them. 2 bakers extraordinaire. One in Peds Neuro and one in adult neurology. So you're basically covered. And so there's that helps a lot. Okay, for the interest of time, I'll ask 3 more people, the newbies. So Brian, Jenny, and Rebecca.
So I'd have to say fun as another thing to add. I was going to say supportive, but Nan stole that. We have a really good time, whether it's lunches together, having a good time with didactics, making sure that we have get-togethers outside of work every time that we're switching rotations. It's been a lot of fun. You know, feel like we have great dynamics within our class, between classes. John, I'm expecting a bar of chocolate from you now that
It's not myasthenia, man. You didn't win the bet. Patients does
Absolutely is.
not
The
have
antibodies are
myasthenia.
coming back. Yeah,
I need antibody proof before you win that chocolate bar.
it's coming. It's just a really good time. And then just a little bit of words about how supportive everyone is. I've already had a chance to meet with both very established faculty who are supporting me for my research interests, as well as new faculty. Everyone's so excited to work with the residents, and it's clear that there's so many opportunities for mentoring and supporting residents here.
And then my word was supposed to be supportive as well, but Nan stole it. Now I'll say like friendly. I think how I would, elaborate on that is that, work can be difficult. Like learning process, learning curve is very steep, but then everyone is there to help you, support each other. And always the best thing is that if people are nice, it makes things so much better. So I know it sounds really quirky, I guess. When in the interview trail, you guys will hear a lot about like, oh, I chose this place because I really like the people. But I think that's how I rank the programs. I really like the residents. When I was interviewing, and I really am glad that I chose this program because everyone is super friendly. Learning is really great, and even the faculty are very supportive and helpful. So yeah, so friendly is my one word.
I guess going on the same kind of vein as Jenny, I would say welcoming and approachable. Coming from the other side of the country, Florida, it was
Other side.
We'll have this debate later.
West Coast.
A big transition, obviously traveling across the country. So I reached out to Carla, who came from the Southeast, and then Molly, who did her intern year at Olive View, and a few other residents as well. And they were all so helpful and just would take their time. I think someone called me while they were driving home from the ward just to give me some pointers and help out. So just very approachable and welcoming.
Awesome. I was thinking one more person that you should say something, somebody who's not in the program, so not biased, not getting union food and everything. So Addis.
You should have not talked about the union for the fellows. Yeah, I think I've had the chance of working with the current PGY4s, the recent graduates, and most of the PGY3s while they rotate at the VA Movement Disorders Clinic. And I can say that every class is a little bit different. I agree with a little bit of the quirkiness in the PGY4 class, but everyone's always been extremely nice, very interested, trying to do the best job possible. They have the best neurological exams on every single Parkinson's patient because they include the movement exam, but they also check in reflex and strength and sensory, and they're going above and beyond. So definitely hard workers. And I think with the PDY3 class, I sense a lot of enthusiasm, energy, excitement, and they're also a lot of fun. Something we didn't talk about is the passion for the bachelor, and how we have some running WhatsApp group discussing the latest in Bachelor Nation. So it's not just all work, it's not all just, doing some of the more cerebral set of things. Sometimes seems like they also seem to take a break from that. So a lot of enthusiasm, everyone's extremely friendly. And it's been a great pleasure meeting all of you guys and working with you guys this past year.
That's awesome. Thank you, Addis. Passing down the microphone to the program director.
Thank you, Fatima. So we have reached the end of our time together this evening. And the word I would use, I think all of those are appropriate, but I would say also you're all leaders. And so, that's again what helps push the program forward. But that also makes everyday fun because there are always new ideas. And you guys always challenge us. And I'm speaking as a faculty member. And I think that, that is what is the energy that keeps things moving. So I hope that this has been useful for those of you who have attended. I would urge you to look at our website. There are a lot of resources there that cover more detail about the program and the various aspects of it. Reach out to us if you do have a question that you cannot find the answer, and we will get that answer to you. I'd like to thank the residents and our super fellow for putting this on. There was a lot of planning that went into this. The committee members, I'd like to thank Drs. Keener and in particular Dr. Bordelon, who cracks the whip and kept us all moving in the same direction. And as always, Rebecca and Jennifer for the technical help, and also Jack, I see you're still hanging out there from UCLA Health IT. He has helped orchestrate a very smooth program, and we rely on him mightily for these types of programs. So with that, enjoy the rest of your evenings, and we look forward to getting to know each and every one of you a bit more as this application season progresses. Now the fun starts. We get to really meet each other and learn about each other. Take care.
Yes, thank you, everyone.